The rain had been falling for hours, a relentless storm sweeping across the empty plains, drenching the dry earth that had long forgotten the touch of water. The horizon was nothing but a blur of gray and blue, thunder rumbling like an old beast awakening from slumber. Amid that chaos, a lone rider pushed his horse through the downpour, a dark silhouette against the dying light. His coat clung to his shoulders, his hat pulled low, the brim streaming with water. His name was Elias Kane, once a lawman, now a drifter with too many ghosts trailing behind him. By the time he spotted the small wooden cabin, his hands were stiff from cold and his horse trembling from exhaustion. Smoke curled from the chimney, a promise of warmth, maybe mercy. He dismounted slowly, boots sinking into the muddy ground. The storm roared around him as he approached the door and knocked. 3 heavy thuds that seemed to echo through the night. Inside, Clara Monroe froze. She had been standing by the fire, mending an old blanket, her golden hair glowing in the lamplight. The sound of those knocks cut through the storm, deep, deliberate, heavy with something she couldn't name. For a moment she didn't move. The plains weren't safe after dark, and she lived miles from the nearest town. But then another thunderclap rolled over the land, and she saw the shadow of a man through the window. Tall, broad-shouldered, hunched from cold. With a slow breath, she unlatched the door. Elias stood there like a ghost dragged in from the storm. "Ma'am," he said quietly, water dripping from his hat. "I don't mean no trouble. Just need shelter till the storm passes." Clara studied him, the gun on his hip, the rough lines of his face, the tired eyes that spoke of miles and pain. Something in her told her he wasn't the kind of man to harm without reason. She stepped aside. "Come in." He did, shaking off the rain, closing the door behind him. Warmth hit him like a wave, the scent of firewood, bread, and something faintly floral. For a moment he just stood there, letting the silence of the cabin replace the howl of the wind outside. "You look like you've been riding a long way," she said softly, returning to the fire. "Too long," he replied, removing his hat. His hair was dark, his beard rough with days of dust. "Didn't mean to intrude." "You didn't. Storm's bad. Nobody should be out in it." He nodded, sitting by the hearth. The fire crackled, its orange glow dancing across the walls. Outside, rain lashed the windows, but inside there was peace. Fragile, trembling, but real. After a long silence, Clara poured him a cup of coffee. Their hands brushed as she handed it to him, a spark, small but undeniable. She pulled back quickly, eyes dropping. "Thank you," he murmured. "You're welcome." The hours passed slow. They spoke little, only fragments of stories, half-truths. Elias told her he'd once been a sheriff down south, that he'd lost his badge, his friends, and something he couldn't name. Clara told him she'd lived in the plains her whole life. Her husband had died 2 winters ago, and since then she'd learned to live with silence. When the fire dimmed, Elias stood and placed another log. "You shouldn't be alone out here," he said quietly. Clara smiled faintly. "I've heard that before. Never much cared for what people think I should or shouldn't do." He almost smiled back. "Seems we've both had our share of that." For a long moment, the storm faded into background, just the two of them, the crackle of fire, and the scent of rain-soaked wood. But peace in the west never lasted. A gunshot tore through the night, distant but sharp. Elias was on his feet instantly, hand to his revolver. Clara gasped, stepping back. "Stay inside," he said. "Keep the lamp low." He opened the door, rain slapping his face. In the darkness beyond, he saw shadows, riders, maybe 3, closing fast. His horse neighed in panic. He cursed under his breath. "Who are they?" Clara whispered. "Men who ain't looking for shelter," Elias said grimly. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The wind screamed across the plain as he drew his gun. The riders came into view, the outlaws, their torches swaying. "Evening, Kane," one of them shouted. "Heard you been hiding up this way. You got something belongs to us." Elias's jaw tightened. "You boys should have stayed in town." The first shot cracked like lightning. Elias dove behind a water trough, returning fire. Bullets tore through the storm, flashes of muzzle light splitting the darkness. Clara watched through the window, heart pounding. Minutes felt like hours, then silence. Only the storm remained. Elias stumbled back inside, blood streaking his arm but eyes steady. "They're gone," he said, breath heavy. "Won't be coming back." She moved to him instinctively, tearing a strip from her dress to bind the wound. Her fingers trembled, but her eyes met his. Fierce, alive. "You should have let them go," she whispered. "Can't run from the past, ma'am," he replied softly. "It follows like a shadow." When the storm finally broke, dawn crept over the horizon. The plains glistened under a pale light. Elias stood by the door, hat in hand, watching the sunrise. Clara came up beside him. "You'll be riding out?" she asked. He nodded. "Gotta, can't stay long anywhere." She hesitated, then said, "You could. Just this once." He looked at her, the quiet strength in her eyes, the way she faced the world alone yet unbroken. For a heartbeat he wanted to say yes, but men like him didn't get peace. He mounted his horse, the leather creaking. "Thank you for the fire," he said, tipping his hat. "For the kindness," she smiled faintly. "Maybe next storm you'll find your way back." He looked toward the horizon, then back at her, the cabin, the smoke, the woman who reminded him what warmth felt like. "Maybe," he said. And with that he rode into the light, leaving behind the cabin, the storm, and something he didn't know he'd been searching for: hope. The wind carried his name through the empty plains as the sun rose higher, painting gold across the wet earth. Clara watched until he disappeared, then closed the door gently. Inside, the fire still burned, a single ember of something that might have been love, flickering in the quiet aftermath of the storm. And somewhere far down the road, Elias Kane turned once, tipping his hat to the wind, to her, before the world swallowed him again.